Welcome to the 2021 Power List, where we decided to focus on leadership and inclusion. The executives on this year's Power List have selected power players within their own organizations who represent impactful, innovative, inclusive leadership. We will release exclusive interviews with our power players talking about these topics weekly. In this video, you'll hear from Karim Webb of Fourth Movement and Rita Patel of Buffalo Wild Wings.
I think that COVID, for all of us has asked us to take a look at some of the things, or invited us to take a look at some of the things we've taken for granted. I know for me personally, even kind of spiritually and from an ego perspective as a leader, it's been like, my success as a Buffalo Wild Wings franchisee, or, in other areas in life around business is a big part of my identity. And so to be challenged, in those ways, and still have to find ways to add value to team members while you're being responsible with your business, shifting so much of your focus to really the sustainability of your business versus being in a growth mindset, being able to, you're doing the work, but you're also being reflective, because none of us can not be affected by in our industry, one, the business reality of the industry by and large, and then two, the personal toll that isolation and so much drastic change and the considerations around your health and the people that you love and their health. And then as leaders or employers around our team members who are, ultimately essential workers. And are in the line of fire, and how do you lead responsibly and lovingly through that while dealing with your own needs and requirements in ways that it serves us to grow.
It's interesting when there's a lot of change just happening in the environment, and then taking on a change in and of itself with a new career move. You do a lot of that self-reflection that Karim was talking about. And, for me, a lot of what I have learned is to focus on the why, right? And we talk a lot about being purpose driven, but the why. And, people ask me all the time, why did you leave? Why would you make a move during a global pandemic into the restaurant industry where it's all about bringing people together? And there were really two things, for me. One part of it was, having the opportunity to step into a role model position where you can bring that empathy forward. You can bring that connection that people are so hungry for. And you don't necessarily see, a lot of women of color in roles like this, particularly in sports bars. And so, for me, there was a personal obligation of how do I step into that, particularly when I think people might need it more than ever, to see, that you can have leadership in these spaces. But the second part of it is, for me, this brand and the partners, the franchisees, the operators that we work with, when Karim talks about frontline, they're there every day. They're caring for the brand, and being part of that was really important for me. So, the second thing I learned was around how to care for people and how to care for, a brand that, to be honest, we're going to weather the storm. And so the things that we have to do today to protect the brand, to give it that longevity, are really important. And it's a really fine balance.
So are there, I don't know, if tricks or techniques that you learn to sort of keep yourself in the moment, even as the world is collapsing around you?
The first thing that I've tried to do always is put myself in other people's shoes. So, I talk about a lot to my team or the leaders on the team about, let's imagine if it was one of our children that were coming to work for us, what would we want their experience to be, from the interview process to orientation to in the stores. And then as we're doing what's necessary, responsibly, or, we've gone from having, units with typically 220 to 250 people in the stores every day, at different times of the day, full stores and sports bars, to takeout only, or, significantly reducing the number of people that are working in our store. What's the impact on those people who, through no fault of their own, are having to deal with the hard ramifications of the loss of hours or all of that kind of stuff, and what is the approach that we need to take. And I think the question is the tool, because yourself or your team, people respect their humanity being addressed, right? Not just the functionality of the standard operating procedures.
And Karim, being a Black entrepreneur is a big part of what you do. You have your Fourth Movement organization that helps foster entrepreneurship in underserved communities. And then this spring and summer, we had the reignition of a 50-year-old social justice movement with the murder of George Floyd. And Karim, 3 of your 4 restaurants are in predominantly Black neighborhoods, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
So how did you, I mean, that was the spring and summer was very emotional for everybody, but I think in particular for the Black community. So how did you, as a leader and an entrepreneur in those communities, help everybody to cope with that?
My perspective is a little different than the premise that you offered, to be honest, because, Black folks been dealing with this a long time. Like nothing changed for us. Like it was just like no, I don't know of an African American person that was surprised that George Floyd was killed. We were surprised that it was caught on tape, and we were like hearts were warmed by the fact that we had folks who, I think because they don't live that experience, they don't have to have the conversation with their son or daughter, at 15 and 16 years old when you get a driver's license about what to do when you have interactions with law enforcement. Actually like acknowledge, be able to see like, wait, this is a real issue. Mm-hmm. And so not to kind of be like on the in the fight solo, but to find yourself in conversations with colleagues and others. Even on the Buffalo Wild Wings platform, I'm a former member of the FAC. Ray Hutchinson's a great guy, good friend, and the president of the Franchise Advisory Council, and really the leader amongst the Buffalo Wild Wings franchisees, created a platform to have a conversation, which I led around our experience, my experience and other folks' experience and theirs, and to begin to start to break down, unconscious bias. And an ownership, amongst franchisees and owners, because we don't get the same exposure as maybe corporate executives to those kinds of tools. So I thought that was cool. And then just being civically engaged. I'm the commissioner for the city of LA, LAX, and all of that kind of stuff. There was no conversation that I was in philanthropy, in civic engagement, or in business, including with Buffalo Wild Wings, where this conversation wasn't happening, and what it meant for our customers and what it means for our team members. And that had never happened before. So it was what happened because of George Floyd in those conversations, and the willingness for, partners like Pepsi to step up and do some of the work that they're doing, in order to improve outcomes. It's really this realization in our country and in our industry that we have an opportunity to do better when we all do better. And that I think George Floyd, what he represented outside of the application of criminal justice and the disparities there, is that there's just a fundamental, significant disparity of equity in terms of how people exist in the United States of America, and is disproportionately negatively impacts people of color.
Let's talk
a conversation that wasn't being, it was just like a taboo conversation to have, versus now one that seems to be somewhat front and center.
So now, instead of people rolling your eyes when you say, "Hey, Black people, help us out," instead they're actually listening.
Or Black people matter. We matter consumers. Like, we bring a perspective to the table that's going to make your business endeavor better. You're going to attract more customers. You're going to get a perspective that is going to help you create strategy that's going to be more effective, because diversity is healthy.
Stay tuned for our next leadership conversation from the Power List.